We are back. Final segment this morning on MorningLine. With me this morning is Professor John Weil from MTSU. It's always good to have you on, sir. I really enjoy just sitting here talking, and I enjoy hearing from our viewers. If you want to join in the conversation, 737-7587. I think we've had a good cross-section of people who, feel, on opposite sides of the issue, but all of them making interesting points. So I appreciate it. We've got Benny who waited through the break. Good morning, Benny. Hi, Benny.
Hey, Nick, how y'all doing today?
Good. How are you, sir? What's on your mind?
Just 3 points. You had a veteran call in a couple of weeks ago, said he could not indict or impeach a president while he starts a war during wartime. And I think, well, if they do impeach him, kick him out. But he is impeached, so that make him a lame duck. And if people are paying attention, he's been lying about everything. Even the court case he lost about the hotel, he was guilty. He says, I'm innocent. Why does a man lie every time he opens his mouth?
You know, I read somewhere where in his upbringing with his father, and I don't know how loving a household it was, but his father, who was a very, very, I think, I don't know if he was disciplinarian, but a stern guy, but he kind of ingrained it in his son in business and such, even when you're wrong, don't give an inch.
Well, Roy Cohn, was his father's attorney, and he is somebody that Trump admires, and he was one of these cold warriors, and he was always in your face, never give an inch.
Never give an inch, even in the face of being wrong, because just don't give, even when it's obvious.
I should tell Benny, and as a political scientist, I hope this isn't true, but the old question used to be, how can you tell when a politician is lying and it's when his lips are moving?
Right.
So it's not unique to Trump,
to this president.
But he may have perfected it to a fine art.
Well, listen, in terms of the heated activity in the chambers, it's going to be, again, going today. Yesterday it was interesting. You had, Chief Justice John Roberts from the Supreme Court that has to preside over it. I guess that's how these things work. The Chief Justice always sits in, right?
If it's a precedent. That's a one case. Otherwise, it's not.
Okay, if it's someone else.
For presidential impeachment.
And, of course, that takes the justice away from the Supreme Court, which means, I think this morning, as you were telling me during one of the breaks, there is a key case being heard in oral arguments this morning. So Roberts has to be there for that. So things will start probably this afternoon in the Senate chambers. But yesterday, in the back and forth that got kind of acrimonious, I think, because they were debating some of the rules of how they would go forward. I mean, he intervened, and he basically told both sides, do not, he said, those addressing the Senate should remember where they are. And reminding them, you are in the Senate chambers.
And he referred to it as what? The world's greatest deliberative body.
Yeah.
And, there are all these conventions in the Senate. The right honorable gentleman from the state of, whatever. That's how there's and you were getting into, well, he's lying and, he's not telling the truth. And, and a lot of it was, particularly in the briefs for the president, were, if you come in and say this is all a hoax, it's like, well, no, wait a second, we're a jury. There's something serious here. You may not agree with the charges, but it's not just a hoax.
Right. So, but going back, there's decorum, right?
There's supposed to be.
It's funny, and that slowly but surely has been, sheared away from what happens in, remember, wasn't it a few years back, was it President Obama giving a State of the Union?
Somebody shouted out, it's not true.
Who would ever interrupt a State of the Union? And
although in the 19th century there was a prominent case where one member of Congress caned the other, beat him almost to a pulp. So it's not always, when we look back, it gets a little rosier than it actually was.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the times we live, we think sometimes what we're experiencing and seeing is the first time. Maybe because it's the first time we've seen it personally.
Right.
But you do a good job of reminding us, be it criticism of a sitting president. That certainly is nothing new, though I think it gets more heated every president that comes along, right? And all these other things have happened in the past.
Yes.
It's not like this is, and somehow...
There was a guy named John Randolph of Roanoke, who was just notorious. He would come into Congress with a pack of dogs and a whip in his hand, and he was just notorious for skewering everyone with his rhetoric.
Really, just coming into See,
I mean, that was, and he was very admired in England. He never took a trip to there, and he sort of reminded the English of their aristocrats, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and somehow through all that stuff, the system survives and it goes, and whatever we're going through here. But you need to be aware about it and talk about it. All right, so let's as we wrap things up, we can take any more calls if anyone else wants to touch bases. But all right, so we expect today. When will things really begin in earnest in terms of testimony and such?
Well, we don't know if there'll be testimony.
Okay.
My understanding is the next 2 days, you'll see some of what you saw yesterday. The Democrats will present their, the abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. They'll sort of do what they've done in their formal briefs in an oral form.
And isn't this much of what we've already heard in the House?
It is.
Okay. So.
And then the 2 days following that, which I think will start Saturday and probably Monday, then the Republicans will have their response. And my understanding is at that point that they will then go back through these motions yesterday as to, are we going to have testimony? And partly it may come up with, there are some people, particularly the Bidens, that the Republicans would like to call. Might there be an exchange there? I don't think it's going to be that one, but can we limit it to John Bolton or Mulvaney or this one or two? What would be great would be if the president would say, I'll come testify on this. But
and there were times he said that in a way that he would think about it, but I think his staff said probably not a good thing in that one. All right, and so at some point, once all that's done, and that could be maybe a week, 2 weeks from now, okay, the Senate will call on a vote.
They'll have a vote, and it takes 2/3 majority to convict.
And so, I mean, even in the unlikely event that 10 Republicans shift, he still has enough votes to get what he needs. So there really is, to me, no drama, barring some bombshell that falls. And even those in the face of what's happening these days, I don't know would make a difference. That he's not going to be removed. That there'll be that vote.
Unlikely.
He'll be retained, and that will be it. Back to business as usual. The question is, between now and then, is there any damage that's done to him politically, or vice versa? Does it come back and hit the Democrats politically as we embark on what's really the important election?
And it may very well depend on whether you're in a blue state or a red state. It's going to help. I mean, some Republicans might be helped if they bolt from the party on having witnesses, and others would be hurt. And same for the Democrats.
Yeah, and what do you think the voters thinking as they watch this? Obviously, there are his hardcore supporters, and they're the hardcore Democrats that just doesn't matter. They're not moving, doesn't matter. Are there some still, in your opinion, in the middle, maybe that voted for the president, that are seeing some of these things and thinking, this wasn't really what I thought when I voted for him, I'm going to shift? Or could there be some on the other side saying, look, I like the way he's just fighting them, and I didn't vote for him the first time, I'm going to go for him now? Is there that? How many are in the middle that can sway things?
I think the middle right now is more who's going to be the opposition to Trump.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the speculation as to how well Trump's going to do depends on
what that ticket is.
If you have some candidates I think would not do well against Trump. Others would have a pretty good shot.
Okay, so that's what that'll come down to, and then. I just wonder if it's going to hurt them and if the public cares one way or the other.
But again, how many people are not too many people are going to stay up till midnight, including me.
No.
Even I have endurance on this.
So it was that. How late did it go last night?
I don't know. I think till about 1 or 2 on Eastern time.
And who makes the call on it's time to go to bed?
Well, I think they were trying to get through everything yesterday so that they have 8 hours for each of the next 2 days, I believe.
And meanwhile, the
each side.
he's in Switzerland, isn't he, at the World Economic Forum?
He's been there. I'm not sure if I believe he's
on his way back now. And you continued to tweet a bit yesterday, of course, on that overnight.
Well, he did more than tweet. He was actually speaking,
Yeah.
And you wonder how useful it is for an American president negotiating to be talking instead about his own impeachment back home. Seems like that's something he would do better to ignore, but he's aiming that at the American people.
I suppose, but he is obsessed with it because he even brought that up at the White House ceremony when the LSU Tigers went and visited the White House.
Yes, he did.
And he brought it up again. It has consumed him.
Yes.
It has consumed him. And so anyone who thinks he's doing this intentionally likes it. No matter what and how this plays out, this president did not want to be impeached.
No, he
did not want to be impeached, and he's going to fight this one through. But then it'll be behind us, and then we move on. I'm trying to remember back when President Clinton was impeached, and the way it finally just came down, and then this, it kind of, it was in a flurry, and he was a lame duck, and then that was it, you know?
Right. And of course, Trump is not a lame duck unless he's not reelected.
Right, exactly. So we'll see how that plays out. All right. Will you be back?
Oh, absolutely.
You'll be back as we follow this along. I want to thank everyone for the phone calls. Hey, there's always. We were talking before about the campaign, the presidential campaign, 4 years ago, and just watching it all go. And the centerpiece of it was the president, the candidate Trump at the time, and always something to talk about. Certainly the way it is now. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks again for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Take a break. Be back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this.